Hello everyone. A couple days ago, an anonymous person sent me this story from their childhood, asking me to share it about the monster they saw, and I visualized it in this video. So I present to you,
It's Not My Mom True Horror Story.
Outside, the snow was falling heavily, and the cold wind managed to creep through the old wooden windows. A tired silhouette in a nightshirt left the room, closing the door behind them. Every night before bed, my mom sang me a lullaby, the same one about tired toys and books, which also go to sleep. She loved me more than anything in the world, and I loved her. I made her proud every day with good grades, washed dishes, and a clean room. Even when she came home exhausted from work and could barely stand, she would still sit on the edge of my bed and quietly sing that same lullaby about toys and books. Why do I emphasize the lullaby so much? Probably because it was the first thing that stood out when my sweet, carefree life vanished. This happened when I was 10 years old. One cold autumn evening, my mom stayed late at work. I came home from school, finished all my homework, even did a few exercises ahead of time, and at around 8 p.m. like usual, the front door should have creaked open, and my mom would appear on the doorstep. But it didn't happen, not after an hour or even 2. The clock's hands were quickly nearing 11. It was almost time for bed, and my mom still hadn't come home. I called her work several times from our landline. I even called her friend and our neighbor, but no one knew anything. Maybe she was just working late. Maybe there were problems. Anything could happen. I tried to reassure myself, tossing and turning in bed, but bad thoughts kept creeping into my head. She always calls when she's going to be late at work. She worries about me, but that night everything was different. I just lay there. I couldn't sleep without her lullaby. And the empty, dark apartment was a little frightening for a 10-year-old. Finally, around 2 a.m., I heard my mom trying to get the key in the lock. Then came the creak of the door. She wasn't alone. I could hear another voice, a rough, male voice, and my mom's laugh mixed with harsh words. I got out of bed, rubbing my eyes sleepily. I pretended I had been asleep the whole time and my mom had just woken me up. In the hallway stood my mom, barely able to stay on her feet. Beside her was some tall man, about her age. "Oh, you're awake already?" she asked. "Mom, it's 2 a.m. Where have you been?" "Mom stayed late at work," she answered, hiccuping. Even then, I understood that my mom was completely drunk, and she had brought some stranger home. By the way, she immediately introduced him to me. "Meet him, sweetie. This is Kyle, my co-worker." The man came up to me and extended a huge hand. "I'm Kyle," he said monotonously, as though he found it uncomfortable. "Sweetie, go rest, and Kyle and I will sit and chat for a bit," she mumbled, trying to take off her boot while leaning against the wall. I turned and walked away, pretending to be upset. My mom didn't follow me. I had never seen her like this before, in this state. She never drank. Well, maybe on holidays, just a little, and not always, but now she could barely stand. And she had brought some guy home. So I lay in bed and tried to sleep, but sadly, I couldn't fall asleep for hours. The conversations from the kitchen, the cigarette smoke, and their loud laughter literally dragged me out of sleep. No matter how much I tried to block my ears with my hands or bury my head under the pillow, it didn't help. They acted as if they were alone in the apartment, with no little sleeping child behind the wall who had to get up early for school the next day. Around 4 a.m., the noises from the kitchen quieted down and I heard chaotic footsteps in the hallway heading toward my mom's bedroom. Then, after a few minutes, I heard moaning and the creak of her bed. Unable to stand it any longer, I got out of bed to ask my mom and her guest to be a bit quieter, I didn't know back then, at 10, what adults do in such moments, and that it's best not to interrupt them. That night, for the first time, I saw my mom with a man. I opened the door to the bedroom and immediately heard her shout, "What are you still doing up?" I quickly slammed the door and ran back to my room, hiding under the covers, bracing myself for a scolding. But my mom didn't even seem to notice me. She continued on, loudly moaning, and I, curled up in a ball, tried to sleep once more, hands over my ears. This time I succeeded. Of course, no one woke me up in the morning, and I didn't get up until around 2 in the afternoon. The first thing I did when I left my room was quietly peek into my mom's bedroom. She was sleeping with that same guy, Kyle. Clothes were scattered all over the floor, along with cigarette butts and empty bottles. The whole apartment smelled of stale alcohol mixed with cigarette smoke. It all felt so alien to me. It was like I had found myself in a terrible nightmare. From that day on, everything started to go downhill. That carefree childhood I once had vanished completely. This guy, Kyle, showed up every day. My mom couldn't be away from him for even a second. Sometimes it seemed like she had forgotten about me altogether. The loving, smiling woman I knew was slowly fading away before my eyes. And what could I do? Nothing. I had to accept what I was seeing. The first week wasn't too bad. At least my mom still went to work. But then she stopped. She spent entire afternoons in bed with Kyle. Every time he came over, I'd hear the sound of bottles clinking in his bag. Then they'd lock themselves in the kitchen, drinking and partying until morning, keeping me awake. My grades at school started to drop. I wasn't getting enough sleep. And no one scolded me or forced me to fix them. My mom didn't care. And with each passing day, her indifference became more and more obvious. Forget about bedtime lullabies and delicious breakfasts. I was eating whatever was left over from their late-night drinking. Sometimes they'd send me to the store and I'd use the change to buy something sweet for myself. A little treat, I suppose. Over time, my mom started pushing me to spend more time with Kyle. He even tried building things with me, pretending he was really interested. And my mom was constantly talking about him. She'd ask me to be friends with him and so on. But something about him put me off. I didn't know exactly what it was back then, but I knew something was wrong with him. I didn't like him. He gave off a bad vibe. But I tried to play along, pretending to be nice just to make my mom happy. Just to see her smile. But with each day, things only got worse. My mom was changing right before my eyes. She went from being a beautiful, slender, well-kept woman to a gaunt, grumpy, dirty version of herself, always smelling like alcohol, with a hoarse voice. And her boyfriend, well, he was living the same way. Since the day I first met him, he hadn't changed a bit. When I couldn't take it anymore, I waited for them to leave the house one day and ran up to Aunt Kathy's apartment. I told her everything that was happening in our apartment. "But I came to see you a few days ago. Well, your mom didn't let me in. She said she was busy, but she seemed fine, as usual. No smell of alcohol or cigarettes." "That's strange. It's that guy Kyle. He's the one causing all this, Aunt Kathy. There's something off about him. What did she even see in him?" "Well, women are mysterious creatures. Sometimes they fall for those who pull them down into the dirt. Aunt Kathy, please help us. Talk to my mom. You're her friend. You can talk to her." A huge argument started, one so loud the whole building must have heard. Aunt Kathy yelled at my mom, saying she had completely let herself go and wasn't taking care of me. My mom screamed back, hysterically, saying it was none of anyone's business and no one had the right to tell her what to do. Even Kyle joined in. After a few minutes of yelling and cursing, Aunt Kathy decided to take me with her. That's when I noticed the first strange thing. My mom immediately grabbed my hand and squeezed it tightly. Her face twisted in a moment of anger, then shifted to a fake, overly sweet smile. She grinned, showing her teeth, and whispered quietly, "Sweetheart, sweetheart, come with me. I'll sing you a lullaby. Remember how it used to be? A lullaby?" It didn't bother her in the slightest that it was 8 p.m. But then, naive 10-year-old me believed her and stayed home. I promised Aunt Kathy I'd come to her if anything happened. After that fight with our neighbor, it seemed like my mom was going to change. In the apartment, everything seemed oddly clean, but despite the tidying up, I couldn't shake a strange smell. Maybe something in the fridge went bad, or perhaps the trash needed to be taken out. I briefly thought that maybe things had returned to normal, just like before. But my hopes began to shatter when later that night, my mom came into my room. She sat on the edge of my bed, just like usual, gently tucked me in, and started singing that same lullaby. That's when I realized something was wrong. Her voice, it wasn't the same. It was rough, not the soft, familiar voice I had known. And it wasn't just rough. If I closed my eyes and didn't see her silhouette, I would have thought the lullaby was being sung by multiple people. Some of them sounded like men and others like women. It terrified me. I pretended to be asleep so I wouldn't have to hear it anymore. Mom quickly realized I wasn't reacting and left the room. That's when I saw something I wasn't supposed to. I cracked my eyes open, just a little. Mom got up from the bed and I heard a distinct crunch, like someone stepping on a bag of crackers. She bent sideways. Her arms hung loosely, as though she had lost control of them. Bent over, dragging her feet, she stumbled toward the door. I was so scared, I can't even explain it. I froze in my bed, too scared to move, afraid to draw attention to whatever that thing was that looked like my mom. What I had just witnessed shattered my reality. I replayed everything in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. Of course, there was no question of sleep or school now. I lay there all night, unable to close my eyes, terrified that whatever was pretending to be my mom would come into my room and do something horrible while I slept. Thankfully, no one came into my room. The only thing I heard all night were her dragging steps in the hall. I heard the clatter of dishes in the kitchen, and even her talking to herself. And remember that Guy Kyle hadn't been around all day, and he didn't show up that night either. I lay there, listening to every creak and groan of the apartment, but I never heard the familiar sound of our front door creaking open. When it finally got light outside, and the apartment was quiet, I decided to risk leaving my room to use the bathroom. I had endured the whole night, but as soon as I closed the bathroom door behind me, I heard heavy footsteps from Mom's room. My heart sank and I froze. It sounded like she went to the kitchen. While she was there, I slowly cracked the door open and rushed to her room, slamming the door behind me.
"Son,
Came the voice from the hallway,
are you still awake?"
but it wasn't her voice. When she sang the lullaby, I had still entertained the thought it might be her. But now, there was no doubt. That voice was not my mom's.
"Son,
The distorted, terrifying voice called from the hallway.
where are you, my darling?"
That's when I knew something was terribly wrong in the room. The smell. It was stronger now. The same scent, but this time it filled the entire room. I stepped away from the door and glanced at the mirror in her room, horrified. I almost fell to the floor. In the reflection, I saw a hand under the bed. It was my mom's hand, already covered in what looked like deathly discoloration. I recognized it by the rings she still wore, even after my father passed. Before I could even process the shock, the doorknob rattled. I quickly stuffed my shirt in my nose and crawled to the bed. I knew for sure now that the thing in the room wasn't breathing. It was my mother's lifeless body. But who was walking around in the hallway? who was trying to get into the room. The realization of everything happening hit me like a ton of bricks, and my throat closed up. I seriously considered jumping out of the window. I wanted to scream for help, for anyone to hear me.
Son, open the door.
The hideous voice called again. I ignored it, trying to think of a way out. I considered opening the door like everything was normal, walking past whatever was out there and making a run for it. She hadn't touched me all these days. What had changed? My plans were ruined when I heard, not the imitation of my mom's soft voice, but a cruel, guttural growl.
Open the door now, little puppy.
Followed by a violent thud against the thin door. I was paralyzed with terror. The animalistic dread in those words made me scream at the top of my lungs. I lost control. I screamed, hoping anyone would hear me. The other version of my mom, sensing that someone might come to help, rushed into the hallway. I heard the lock on the front door click. There was no way out. The only option left was the window. The window, yes. I turned back to the door, and opening it, I started yelling for help as loudly as I could, hoping someone would hear me. But nothing happened. No one came. Some people had heard my screams and noticed, but no one came to my aid. I had to sit there, hidden behind my mom's wardrobe, waiting until evening. I could hear the thing that resembled her trying to talk to me, threatening me and begging for me to open the door. It kept saying,
If you don't let me in now, I'll get in anyway.
And then,
I'll crack your skull, and after I will eat your brain, you little piece of meat. Open the damn door before I tear your worthless head off.
That was just one of the many threats I heard that morning. I sat in that room all day long, not eating or drinking. I had to go to the bathroom behind that wardrobe. The stench was so overwhelming it felt like the whole room could collapse. It was getting dark outside. I hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. My body was shutting down despite the terror I felt all day long. All day that thing outside the door kept trying to talk to me, threatening me with every possible kind of harm. But what happened as soon as night fell still doesn't make sense in my head. Suddenly there were loud knocks on the door, hard, insistent knocks that pulled me out of my stupor. I scrambled to my feet and once again tried to call for help. Fortunately, an elderly man heard me. "What's wrong?" he asked as he approached the building. "Please help me." I was trembling behind the door while that thing raged on the other side, realizing that help was close.
No one's going to help you, kid. Only I, your mother, can help you. Open the door, now.
Finally, the doorbell rang. The thing stopped banging and shuffled towards the entrance. I heard a faint voice from the man, probably the one I had asked for help. The conversation didn't last long. I could hear my mom inviting him inside. He entered. There was a commotion. "I'm trying to get in here. Can you help me open this lock? Something's wrong." I froze. In that moment, I heard her real voice, the soft, familiar tone. A few minutes later, the door opened, and as the man realized the smell of decay, his suspicion grew, but it was too late. She was standing behind him, twisted into a grotesque shape. Then, her hands grabbed his shoulders with a grip like iron, and her mouth stretched open, wide beyond reason. She sank her teeth into his skull. He didn't even have time to scream before his face turned pale, and within seconds, he collapsed, twitching in a pool of his own blood and urine. She easily stepped over his lifeless body and started to approach me. At that moment, nothing about her resembled my mom anymore, except for her nightgown, which was now torn and trailing behind her, smeared with a man's blood. I was paralyzed with horror. I couldn't move. She came closer, slowly humming that lullaby in a horrible, garbled voice. Her dead eyes stared into nothingness. Her skin was wrinkled, and her hair seemed to have fused with it. Her bloodied jaw hung, almost only supported by her cheeks. In fact, her face looked more like a skull wrapped in skin. Realizing that I would meet the same fate as that man if I stayed, I opened the window and jumped out, not thinking about the height. The second floor wasn't far, but I still managed to break my leg. I screamed until some passers-by rushed over to help me, giving me first aid. They called an ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital. My neighbor, Aunt Kathy, came by several times, bringing me food and asking what had happened that night. The police also came. What could I, a 10-year-old kid, tell them? The truth, which no one wanted to believe. Neither Aunt Kathy nor the cops could understand why my mom's body was rotting under the bed in her bedroom. They didn't believe me. For the rest of my life, I tried to figure out what had really happened. I knew that my mom's boyfriend had done this to her. It all started when she met him. That's when the nightmare began. Who was he? Why did he do it? Where did he go? He vanished, probably because he killed my mom. A few days passed, and she began to decay under the bed. But who had I been living with for those 2 days? Recently, I stumbled upon a news article from 13 years ago on an old abandoned website from our local news station. "Kyle Mitchell," I gasped, shouting in shock. "Oh gosh, it's him! It's him!" The article stated that they had found his decomposing body. It was discovered by a group of hikers who accidentally stumbled upon an old abandoned church on the outskirts of the city. This wasn't the first ritualistic murder in the area. The crime scene had been littered with religious texts, crosses, desecrated icons, and other similar items. There were rumors circulating among the locals, who weren't exactly talkative, that a cult had been operating in that abandoned church for several years, and this wasn't the first body to be found within those walls. Though the church was located far from the nearest settlement, the villagers had been pleading with the authorities to demolish the building. But, as we can see, it still stands, even though multiple attempts had been made to tear it down. We were able to speak with the head of the village. His direct quote was, "It's impossible. You see, we've tried several times. There's some kind of anomaly around it. The church won't let anyone get within 50 meters. All equipment breaks down, stops working. The only advice I can give is to stay away from that area." Reading this made my eyes widen in disbelief. It was him, Kyle. The article included a photo of him. I recognized him immediately and with a shudder realized that when my mom brought him home, he had already been dead for 3 years. Smash that like button if you got scared, and leave a comment telling us which moment gave you chills. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not afraid. Choose one of the 2 videos on the screen to test your nerves. Boo!